Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's November the 8th. It's election day here in the U.S., so an interesting day. Looks like we had a little bit of an election day rally here. Very nice rally. Evidently, the market thinks the right person's going to win. I was a little surprised at this rally coming this early. Be aware that if you haven't heard yet, they're going to double the margins after 4 o'clock today. So when the market opens back up, well, it's actually already open now. The margins uh, will be double. So just be aware of that. As you can see, it was just a range day. Once we broke higher, you want to measure. I mean, you could almost call this a trend day because we're going to close up, and we did trend up a large portion of the day. But this started out as a range, and once we went higher, you had to assume that maybe that's a midline and measure that. And you can see we went a little further than that. This was a strong rally, so it pushed through, but eventually we got back within the range, the measured, and you see that's exactly within that measured move. And um, we closed about in the middle of the upper half of this range. So in the end, this is these highs, overnight highs and lows, just turned out to be a midline. So, but again, we rallied from just after the open till lunchtime. I would say that's when it turned back down right in here. So at lunchtime, slightly after lunch. So, but anyway, let's get through the trades. I want to go home and turn on the TV and watch the results as they come in tonight. So it's going to be interesting. It's an interesting election. So we'll see what happens. But so let's go ahead and talk about our trades, and we'll get through this. Early on, this is looking very rangy. We had a double top. We're trending down. You draw your trend line off those first two swings. Um, I really like this one. This is a second entry short right here. Notice how prices pushed through the EMA, pulled back. You actually had a failed second entry long there, but that was before. That was long before I even came in. It's really too early to be trading. Um, if you took that one, you would have had a loser, it looks like, but it would have been really close. But you don't have room to get out there. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there because nobody. Hopefully, you're not trading. I mean, I don't recommend you ever trade during this overnight stuff because um, too many crazy things happen. But we pull back. You draw your trend line there. Um, that's a second entry short. Notice the new low. Pull back first entry. Pull back second entry. And there's also a little double top right there. It's a little failed break higher. But draw your trend line there. This is actually your signal bar, but this made a little higher low right here. And so that's where it would have triggered. But your stop still would have had to go above the green bar there. So I moved the arrow above it. But notice how it pulls back and tests it again and gives you that third test and confirmation. Look how bearish that bar is. The only thing that might have scared you away from this one too is it didn't break below. It was similar to this one. So it's looking similar to a repeat, but coming off the EMA, a double test of that trend line. Um, there's enough reasons to like that one. You might have dropped a limit order in a couple of ticks back just to get a little better entry before that low. And you could have gotten filled maybe a tick back into that, and then the bottom drops on out. Pulls back again here. This is very similar to a breakout pullback short. It didn't quite go below that low, but we did push below the closes there and pull back, and it's right off that trend line again. So you might take that one. It's a little risky in my opinion with that being the overnight lows at that point. So, but there's reasons to like that trade as well, but I think you're better off to skip it. You might let it break lower, drop a limit order way back up here, but just to make sure you had enough room, but I don't think it would have backed up enough. So um, I really think that one's almost worth skipping. And then of course we make a new low, we bounce. You get a first entry here, but there's no break of that trend line. We push through the EMA. I would wait. And of course we run straight down. You really don't. There's a little higher low there, but that's didn't break higher. You don't, um, you know, you don't get a tick higher. You do have a little higher low there, so I could see somebody saying, "Hey, that's worth taking," but I'd skip that. And then now you got a break. You make a new low. You really get a double bottom there. You got a nice bullish reversal bar. Generally, you're better off to wait on a higher low. So that's the reason that one's green. It does pull back and then turn higher, but we still don't really have the reversal pattern in play yet. We're still below the EMA. This is kind of looking sideways. It looked like it was going to turn and go lower, and all they did was trap. And this is why you definitely don't want to be going short there into that double bottom. Um, and that's a nice trap. So just go long right there. Quick, easy scalp. And it pulls back. And this is a double top, so it pulls back first entry, pull back. That's a second entry long. Nice bullish bar. It's a pretty big bar, so you might have had trouble getting in it. But I think that's worth taking even with a stop just above it, especially as bearish as that was. And we start working higher. I didn't like going long up in here because you got a shorter term trend line here and you got a break now and a new couple legs up. So this thing could just kind of get stuck going sideways here. It does bounce again right here on the first entry, but again, I'm not crazy about taking it. And finally, you get your reversal pattern here. Notice this made a new low that's lower than that swing low right there. So there's your first entry short. You move up, you get your second entry short. And now you got another confirmation. You really could have gone long right there almost, because that's your third touch of the trend line off those two swings. The only problem is you really could have, this trend line could have been a little lower here. And if that's the case, it wouldn't have touched it again yet. So that's the reason I didn't like that one. But when it pulls back the second time, it gives you that failed second entry short. I like going long right there. Just looking at, hey, it looks like now prices are headed back to the upper side of the range. And if you caught that one trade, you can ride this all the way to the top. I'd measure that move, and I'd look to get out right in here somewhere near this high. And you know, it went maybe an extra point or two higher, but if you can get 90% of a move like that on a huge move like that, don't try to get greedy because you'll just give it back. So this turned out to be a nice trade right here. And that was the reason I would skip these others based on what we talked about earlier there. The fact that we got a break of this shorter term one, and you really didn't know exactly where this trend line was until you got these next two bounces. So actually, originally I had it a little lower, like so, and you see it's not going to touch them there. So I just tightened it up to where the close was on that one, and that turns out to be it. And this thing takes off. Notice it pulls back. You end up with a little double bottom there, and it tips lower, and that is the midline. At first, you don't know if that's the midline or not. If you just slide it over, I originally had it like right in there, and that looked like it. But turns out it's a midline. And when it kept on going, you got to figure it's a midline. And once it turns that off the high, it's probably headed back, although on a real strong trend, it may stay on the upper side of that trend channel for a while. So, but this, you could treat this like a little failed break lower. It's a first entry. There's just so many reasons not to take it, especially after moving that far up. But I can see why you might be interested in it. But it makes a new low. It's lower than that one, so you get your first entry short. You go higher, you get your second entry short, and so go long above that bar. Another nice move. Then it pulls back. Notice we aren't quite back to the highs yet. Pulls back, gives you a lower high. I like that one. This thing is strong now, and I'd be looking for it to go here. So I like that one. This one's real close to being green. There's not much room to get out. But when you get real strong trends like this, you don't get much more opportunity than that. So that's the reason I kind of like that one. Again, you could argue for that to be green. It's borderline. So the better entry was here and down here. So, and you would have had a runner off any of these. Then it pulls back again. We finally start touching up here, and it finally turns down. It pulls back. It gives you a fairly bearish, bullish bar there. It gives you a little bitty one with maybe 3 ticks there. But there's no reason to go long there, even with that little bitty bar. So, but when you get the next bullish one, and it's bouncing off the EMA, being that strong, there's a good chance we're going higher again. I think it's risky, so that's why it's green, because we should be coming back to this side pretty quickly. And of course, not long after we make a new high, we get a big sell-off there. Pulls back, touches the original area that you would expect to be the top of the range, tries to go lower, and you can't really see it there. Let me back out some. That might help a little bit. And it ticks one tick higher, turns down, and gives you a big bearish bar. If it would have went on out, I'd say go short there, but it doesn't. So you just have to put a stop right there. It's not a great setup, but there's a little failed second entry long there, and it's a double test of that range, and this is a reversal type pattern, so there's enough reasons to go long there. And it would have been good for a scalp, and that was it. And then, of course, it makes a double bottom, pulls back. There's a failed second entry short there. Notice that new low, first entry, pull back second entry that fails, and so go long there. And we still don't have a new high here yet, so I'm really leery about going short at all here. And even this one is close to being green simply because it took 3 more bars before it broke higher. But you are looking for it to try to do a retest here, but a lot of times on range days you don't get a retest either, so that's another reason to be a little bit leery of that one. Really thinking about it, this one is so close to being green, I almost want to make it green just because of all that congestion right there. But it breaks higher, it does go up and make a new high. And notice you got a little trend line there. You get a close outside, move to a new high, pulls back, comes back, makes a double top, and all that's closing right inside that original measured move there. So go short right there. And that's just a double test of another double top there. And this turns out to be a really nice trade down. Pulls back. Draw your trend line off those. There's really your first few bars there. You couldn't really call these first two a swing, but it's real close. So this was really your first swing, and so you finally get a higher low here. So that's, even though it didn't break higher, that's still a second entry short, and it's off that trend line. So I like going short there, and it pushes on down. This one you got to go short right at the low. You don't have any room to get out there. So and that gets you into the 2 o'clock hour. So yeah, it's going to be curious to see what happens after the election results come about. Remember, the margin does double this afternoon through the night. It may be double tomorrow morning. I don't know. I'm guessing we come in tomorrow morning and things probably settle down within a couple of hours if there even anything going on. It just depends on the outcome of the election. So we will have to see. But you can see the last few days that we've had a lot of volatility based on this. It started yesterday morning. Actually, it started selling off a few days ago. All this was somewhat related to the election, and then suddenly people think it's going a different way, and it recovers again. So who knows if there's any surprises in the election. This thing could rally like crazy or sell off like crazy. So just be prepared. Trade wisely. If it's too volatile, sit on the sidelines. But I'll be curious to see what we get tomorrow. So I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. We can talk about whatever happens then. But for now, I'm done. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.